topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
And welcome to Triversity Talk. I am your host on this weeping Wednesday because I am broadcasting from New York City where it's pouring rain. I am Wendy Stewart. We're under a flood alert here. Oh my God. Thank you all for tuning in. Now, I need to apologize a little bit for my background. I am having my apartment painted, something I haven't done in 25 years. So my normal studio that I broadcast from is right now under plaster, paint, and just about anything else you can think of. So I have put this makeshift piece of white cardboard behind me and what is supposed to be a reenactment of a rainbow flag. You know what? I'm doing the best I can here. That's all I can say. But you're not going to judge me, are you? No, you're not. So Triversity, as you know, is located in Milford, Pennsylvania. We're Triversity, the Pride Center. And we've got a lot of things coming up. So many, I'm going to have to read them from my phone. How about that? This Friday night, please join us at Cafe Ren to hear the wonderful music of the fabulous young Sammy Isabella, who is going off to college. She's so brilliantly talented. Cafe Ren is at 611 Broad Street in Milford. And we also have coming up a new event for Triversity. Oh, by the way, the one for Sammy Isabella is a fundraiser, so come and support us. And we have another new event coming up. It's called First Thursday, and that one is going to be at Doug Koch's. It's now the first Thursday, August 7th. Doug lives in an amazing historical building, a Dutch Reform church that's the residence, and we're having a social gathering that's Thursday, August 7th, and that will be, let me see here, at 6 p.m. and the address there is 898 Route 209, Dingman's Ferry. But you know what? You can always Google it, and you can always go to the Triversity website or our Triversity page on Facebook. Now, I mentioned that this event is going to be at a historical building, the first Thursday that Doug Koch is having, and that brings to mind my guest tonight. Well, my guest tonight is an author with an incredible new book out set in a historical setting. Our guest tonight is a comedian, a drag queen, an award-winning author, and has 4 books out. And the newest book is called Freedom to Love, which was a finalist for the American Fiction Award for Best LGBTQ Fiction. Now, it's a highly provocative, historical fiction story that's going to make you wonder, can love flourish under extreme imbalance? Please welcome the one and only fabulous Jezebel.
Hello. Hi, everybody.
Hello, darling.
So glad to be here. Looking forward.
Whenever I have you coming on the show, which is a lot, I think you've been on my shows more than anyone because you keep writing books. What's up with that?
Well, first of all, thank you. I always love coming on here with you. It's always a great conversation. And yeah, I got to keep everybody busy, got to keep the readers happy. Right. And got to keep the podcast popping, right?
It is, but it amazes me because, all right, I'm going to just jump right into this. Your newest book, The Freedom to Love, can everybody see that? It's got a little shine on it. Not only, your books are riveting, but I love the way, like your last book that I read, Blood Rouge, brought in, the times of Nazi Germany and made it very, very real through the way you use words in description. And I found that same feeling with The Freedom to Love. You took me back to plantations, slavery, and something none of us thought about in those days, LGBTQ people, which obviously existed. But you really had to create the characters, Jezebel, from that mind of yours. I don't know how you do that.
Yes, I really became each and every one of them in a sense and tried to think what it would be like to embody the differences that each of them represented. So they're all a little different. They all offer something to the tale. And to your point, I thank you so much for saying that you liked it and talking about Blood Rouge. Yeah, and so, I tried to think about the fact that there's a lot of factors that I know are going to come out tonight. But to start with, it was like we have heard so many different stories about white slave owners who essentially raped and took advantage of all of these African American, these Black women, these Black, right? And so we hear one-off stories of, love, quote unquote, but there was incredible imbalance in those love, in that love. But we've never heard, or I have never heard, of a story about two men in this situation.
And nobody, I think, has. And we know that certainly was going on in those days. But again, swept under the rug.
Yeah, it had to have existed. But the power dynamics that you alluded to that have to have also existed is something that I think even today there's a fear of talking about. And so I really wanted to unpack a lot of that. And just to give you kind of heads up, it was like the whole idea was initially born out of the fact that I've been with my partner, my husband, for 16 years. He happens to be an African-American man. And I thought about, what if we had gotten together? Because we always think, what if I was alive back then?
Right.
And it was like, what if we had gotten together or had love or felt feelings back then? We would have been facing insurmountable odds and such an uneven power dynamic that could our love have survived? And that's really where it came out of.
Or both of you killed. I mean, you know what? It brings to mind the whole life and death thing in modern cultures in parts of the world, certainly in the Arabic countries, where people are killed for that love.
100%. And look, people were being killed in that time just for the color of their skin.
Absolutely.
Nevertheless, who they loved and who they were sleeping with or anything else related to that. So yeah, that's really where it came out of, just sort of unpacking this big question that led to a whole bunch of other questions and then just lots of layers.
Well, I find myself when I read your book asking how you were able to get so incredibly descriptive in both the actions and the characters, to the point where it was a little, the violence in it was a bit much for me. I had to put it down because it makes you, the reader, paint the picture, right? Which obviously that's what you wanted them to do, but it was so hurtful what was happening, and it's so real. And even though this is a historical novel, I found myself knowing that this went on, and I think that's what made me so uncomfortable.
Yes, I mean, we're 140-ish years later, but the reality is it was brutal. And we cannot be afraid to talk about that. We can't sweep that under the rug like we like to do for a lot of our history, because that feels nice. It feels good, right?
But you know what? We sanitize our history. That's what we do. But not only sanitize it, I can refer to what was going on in Florida, right? Where they were pushing anything that had to do with this time period in an honest way off the plate of the teachers that were teaching it in school.
And that's exactly right. And so this is where I come in with the plate, the platter, right? The whole smorgasbord that I'm going to shove in their faces, because we do need to keep talking about these things. There are a lot of dynamics in this book that have to be discussed. I mean, first of all, I'm a white drag queen writing a story about racial history and racial tensions, right? And so, just that alone is enough to bring some sort of spotlight onto this situation I think we still need to unpack and consider in our great American history that lives on today, racism that is born out of our ultimate sin, right? As people call it, the original sin of the United States.
It's got to do with the original sin. But what I find interesting about what you write about is you do it as a white drag queen. And that's a different perspective, coming at it from a different perspective, because you're really coming at it from the outside, and it's almost objective in many ways. You certainly do your homework, your historical homework. I wanted to point out for people that are listening, Freedom to Love, and I'm holding it up again, the language in it was very much how people spoke in those days. And as a speaker of English, I don't know if I am, I'm from the Bronx, but as my first language is English, I had to go back and read those sentences over again so that I didn't lose anything from the characters, because the words that you choose are so important to every character.
Well, thank you very much. I really wanted to embody and be descriptive in a different way with each character. So they're sort of set apart, right? Yeah. Each one of them really has their own voice and their own experiences. And so I wanted, warms my heart that you say that, because I wanted each one of them to have life breathed into them.
So how did you prep for this? How did you do research? It was as if you were writing something for the stage and you had to write the dialogue. How does one learn to do that?
Well, there are multiple parts to it, right? So anything you're doing in a book that's historical, you need to do some research. Get out there and see the time that you're looking at specifically, the location, what was the vernacular, what was the lay of the land, what do people eat and drink, right? So there's that kind of research.
And that's all online, right? You would do that online.
Yeah, I do a ton of online research because you have to, right? And then it really becomes the creative part. You have to take a stand on who somebody is, and then you have to make that really come alive, right? Yeah. And that's the imagination part, which is a whole lot of fun. And then it's finding the right words to match that person. So, it does take some work, but I thoroughly enjoyed writing this book. As difficult as it was, it really felt so passionate for me. And I think that comes out, or I hope that comes out.
It totally came out in the book. And it's still interesting to me that you could get that vernacular, because me as a reader had to go back and almost translate the sentence, because my ear isn't tuned. Maybe if I were Southern, maybe that would have made it easier for me. But I went back because I didn't want to miss any of the meaning. Okay, or the phrases that they used then. Language was different then, especially down south. Exactly, even now, there's phrases that people use that are very Southern. There's phrases people use in New England that are very New Englandish. But it's important because it's what drives the character.
Exactly. So it's like bless their heart, right? Which they say in the South, or I, as a New Yorker, and as a New York Jew, say Meshuggah and Fakakta and Fashtunkana and all this stuff. So it's, you have to take it to who the person is, the time they are, and the location. And by the way, if you're from the Bronx, that's English. I like to call it the King's, because the King's English. To anybody who uses any other dialect in America, this is the real American dialect.
Bronx is the King's English. And I'm from around Kingsbridge Road, so there you go. Thank you, Jezebel, for embellishing me.
Long Island, New York City, Jersey, this is really the crux of...
It is. It certainly is. So when you were writing the book, in terms of your research, there's a lot of violence, because there's a lot of violence that existed during that time. Did you read about this, or it was things that you knew? Did you use, I wanted to ask you this, and you're a writer, do you incorporate ChatGPT now into not your writing, but I use it for knowledge. I've picked up things that Google won't give me. I'd love to know your process.
Yeah, I don't really use ChatGPT at all, because for a lot of reasons, which we could have a whole conversation on today.
We could. That's another show. We'll have you back.
Yeah. but it's not, it's not just Google. There's lots of other ways to find out information. And then you carry with you a lifetime of learning and experiences too. So it's not like I am a complete novice ever hearing about any of this. So you add on to some of what you know, and then you, of course, you do the research.
I have to be honest, though, a lot of what was in your book, the closest I came to knowing about it was in that film, 10 Years a Slave. That was extremely descriptive and showed how slaves were treated very realistically at that time period. Everything I learned in school was just the real sugar-coated stuff, that slavery was bad, and nobody ever went into detail as to why it was bad. But I love the way you and not doing a spoiler alert, but how you empowered your characters of color as we got towards the end of the book. I'm a big person on happy endings, and I didn't know how it was going to turn out. And credit to you, because you had me like completely riveted. I went to bed at 4:00 in the morning so I could finish the book, Jezebel.
Wow, now that is the highest compliment any author could receive.
Mama had to use cover up under her eyes the next day, and things that would shrink the wrinkles, because I couldn't put it down.
Well, as you can see, I never use makeup, so I wouldn't understand anything about that.
I have always admired your natural look, Jezebel.
Thank you.
I have to say. So what's the response been to the book out there?
So a couple things. To your first point, how the characters end up, there is a thread of something I tried to put in there that's a little different, and that is really thinking, because this does take place in a certain slice of time, but I really wanted to make sure that there was some slice of modernity to it, though very narrow. And that's really about this idea of choices that comes up in the book. And it's really, what choice or choices does anyone have when all of their choices have been taken away from them? Right. So do want to kind of just kind of highlight that and hope that rises to the surface as someone checks out and reads this book. To your other point, what has the response been? So when the book came out, which wasn't that long ago, it debuted right behind the Oprah Book Club book. That
I remember that. That was brilliant timing.
Yes, that made me quite happy. There have been, I think it's gotten a fairly good response because it's not an uncontroversial topic. So just to kind of touch on that for a second, I just want to make sure to get to this, that it could be quite jarring to think that, again, that a white person, not of color, wrote a book dealing with African-American Black slavery in this country. So I wanted to make sure that I was not operating in a total vacuum. And so I made it a point to have the most fabulous African-American editor. Very important to get her eyes.
That was very smart.
On this book. And then I had African-American gay sensitivity reader as well, to make sure that I could get some perspective from somebody who would be represented in the book. And then I had a bunch of people check it out. And the response before it even went out was incredibly, overwhelmingly positive, because for me, this is really about intention, and it's about opening up a dialogue and a conversation. And so the response that I've gotten has been very strongly. I went there. I went to a place, it's taboo, but I went to a place that very, very few people, I think, would probably have, so I've been told, that would have maybe the audacity, I don't know, to go there. But I think there's an important reason to do that, and conversations to unpack and explore.
But I also feel historical novels with LGBTQ plus characters are starting to trend. I've had other authors on the show. Patrick Fields, certainly, I think he's on his 5th book. Same thing, and weaving in the Lenape Indians into his story. So what are we learning here? We're learning, if we don't get out here and tell these stories and do it with a novel, I think it's a brilliant idea to do it with a novel, that these characters will not be brought to light. 100%. If you look at historical novels, just traditionally, they're not talking about any gay relationships in it. And we
A
know
hun-
that they all happened.
Yes, 100%. And that's why Freedom to Love is the second book of a 4-book collection
The
called the
Prestige.
Presence Collection.
Yes.
Presence
yes.
Collection, yes. And it's historical fiction, 4 standalone novels. They're unrelated other than the fact that they have LGBTQIA plus main characters in settings where our existence has been minimized or overlooked. And want to make sure to get everybody in there because book 1 was gender fluid. Book 2, Freedom to Love, is gay, homosexual. Book 3 will be bisexual and pansexual. And book 4 will be intersex. So it is important. There was a real void in this area to me.
Oh my
There
God,
was,
there definitely is.
yeah, and there are fabulous human beings who have lived since the dawn of time that are part of our community. And we need to be talking about them because currently what's happening is there's an effort to erase us. And you cannot erase. We've been here just like the earth has been here since the beginning of time. We will be here when till the stars fade. We've existed from the beginning. We will exist to the end, no matter what they try to do. And the more we're out there talking about ourselves and demonstrating our existence, number one, it shows our presence. But number 2, it gives space and opportunity to saves lives, and especially of our up and coming generation who, we're losing funding for things like suicide hotlines, and you never know.
Yeah, we lost it already,
yeah,
right? Anything that's going to come is going to be in the private sector, organizations that have the money to continue that. But that's absolutely horrific. But then that brings me to the point. I am the optimist. I'm going to tell you what I say to everyone else because people get really down about this. We just have to hang on. I cannot believe the pendulum won't swing. And a lot of these things that have been done can be undone. In history, if you study presidents that have come in, and even with what happened with our environmental protections on the first go around, got rid of all of them. Then our second president came in that we had on the last 4 years before this one. He turned it completely around, turned all that. Now we're back to all of it going down the tubes again. But you can't lose hope. And what I feel by you writing these novels, I feel that you are giving people hope because there's nothing better to me than no matter how things are upsetting out there to be able to exactly what I did, get in bed with a good book that you can't put down, have quiet around you, not be on Facebook, not be on TikTok or all that other stuff, to just be reading the book. I'm such a purist. I insisted on getting it in the tangible. I want to smell the pages.
I appreciate that. I love it. I love to hold a good book, but lots of people like to read it electronically. I'm totally good with that too.
Yeah, absolutely, because you have to expand your audience all over the place.
100%. And yeah, it's important. All of these things to me are important to spread hope, right? That's central to, I think, our most important mission at the moment. And I agree with you. Everything, the pendulum swings. They're going to do horrible, terrible things. But you know what? They won't last forever either. Nobody does. Everybody has a time, date, stamp, expiration where, as we've discussed before, in my belief, everybody's going to meet their maker at some point. And the pendulum swings back. And so I, too, am a buff of presidential history. And so, yeah, presidents come and they do all kinds of stuff. Administrations come and do stuff, and they change because time marches on.
Right. And you just have to hope that you survive it. And to me, that is certainly a theme in both Blood Rouge and Freedom to Love. If you can just make it to the other side, if you can just get through it. And both books are really great examples to give hope that these characters can make it through.
Yes. Noting, though, for those who might have checked out Blood Rouge, that it does have a mixed, heavy ending.
It does.
Right. And so, but there is, in that book, the important message really comes out is, what does it mean to have self-ownership and survive too? What does survival look like? right? And
Right.
survival can mean many different things to make that point, right? But
Yeah.
all of these, to your point, is really about where do I take control of me when others really want to have their say in who I am and what I do.
But it's hard because we talk about this all the time. All you've got is control of yourself, your immediate environment. We can do deeds of kindness. We can do things, Triversity is a pride center. We have open hours. People can come in and talk. We also have a library, which I would like to get your book for the Triversity library. I don't know,
Done.
remember if we have Blood Rouge there or not yet, but
Let's do it.
people, teenagers, young adults, or people of any age can come in and grab a book, all right, and feel better because they were able to take their mind off of the things they can't control and read about things. It takes you away. And I think right now, and you leave with information. It's not like you're going into la la land and blocking out, but you leave with information. I think that's a gift, Jezebel. And I think that's what you do as an author. I want to talk about your first book was The Harlot's Guide to Classy Cocktails.
Yes, my good old trashy, fun book about drunk drag queens and delicious cocktail recipes was a whole lot of fun. Been out for a hot minute. It's always done quite well. I call it the perennial favorite.
Of course.
It includes drag queens, some of the most popular drag queens from around the world. Every single continent except for Antarctica is represented.
Wait a minute. You're bursting my bubble. There's no drag queens in Antarctica?
You know what? I think we should get on a ship and there should be like, a thing where we descend on Antarctica, like penguins.
Jezebel, I can hook you up for that. I'm not kidding you. I know scientists up there. People need something to brighten up their day a little bit. It is cold. And
Yes.
how many glaciers can you look at, right? we need a boat full of drag. This is a great idea. I love brainstorming with you. We need to send a boatload of drag queens up with one of those research vessels, to bring a little levity and a little color to a place, pardon the pun, is very black and white because they've got endless hours of darkness. Okay. And then there's just white ice and snow everywhere. Great idea.
Let's do it. Make it happen. I'll get my fur, my fake fur. Don't start sending me hate mail.
Oh, I know. Forget it. Oh yes, you said it. This is a national show, so anything could happen. So I've had you on for Jess's Jesus Love Juice. You preach in that one. Tell us the story behind that book.
Sure. Jeza's Jesus Juice, a drag queen's Christian devotional, as you are aware, was the first and only Christian devotional written by a drag queen anywhere in the world. And it was a very important book to me. It was a project that came to me in the middle of the night. It was something I was meant to write, and the process and the book came about quite quickly and has been definitely a hit. Got lots of attention, as we know, lots of news media attention. And with that, waves and waves of endless threats and, all kinds of crazy stuff.
People need to just get over themselves.
Yeah. And with any of this stuff, because believe it or not, every book I've written now at this point gets a lot of this, comes back from the public, right? And it's the LGBTQ hating public who just uses these things as an excuse to want to tell me how terrible we all are, how horrible I am, how they hope I die. But anyway, I don't mind because it doesn't really affect me literally in any way whatsoever.
Of course.
Except it makes me proud of the books that I wrote, because it makes me know that we really need this and other people need this kind of cover. And I'm happy to provide the space for people to think about, pray about, talk about things that maybe they may not have or think about things that they may not have an opportunity to do safely in another space.
When, I will say with those first two books, you always use your comedy. And I think that's brilliant. I feel that reaching people through using one's comedy is much better than shoving your opinion down somebody's throat, right? If you can make people laugh, it really creates an opening. Because I feel no matter where I've gone in the world, even some remote places, I didn't speak the language, it didn't matter. They would look at me and laugh. When I was with the Mercy people with the clay plates in their lips, because we went up there to make a film about that in the Omo Valley in Ethiopia, it didn't matter what I did. Those women just sat there and laughed at me. And then I realized they were laughing with me because I would laugh back. And the next thing, they started flipping the plates out of their mouth. And I held it up to mine where there was no way to fit it in. Theirs is in their lip, actually. That became hysterically funny. We were culturally about as far different as you could get. We did not speak the language at all. And yet we made eye contact and we laughed. And you're a storyteller. And in these first two books, they're very comedic. They're light. And I think to be able to bring that to people is really important. It saddens me that people have written things to you like threatening and fire and brimstone and all of that. They really need to get over it.
It's whatever. No, it usually doesn't end. It comes in waves, but I don't, again,
you don't care, right?
They have literally zero power over me in this life or the next. Right. I know who I am and I know who my creator is. And so they have no power over me.
So let's talk about who you are. How did Jezebel get born?
Sure. Well, quite a while ago now. I can't tell you the exact amount of years because I'm getting old and I just can't remember things. This happens.
Girl should never share her age.
Yeah. Well, this happens when you hit 29.
Thank you, darling. So, I know I experienced the same thing recently.
Yeah. So, I wasn't thinking. I was thinking 25. So
thank you.
So I had written a web series called Jeza and the Bells about three drag queen superhero sisters who have to save the world. And it was called Jeza and the Bells. And this character, Jeza Belle, was in it. And it was really came out of the idea that, I'm very grounded and all of my stuff connects somehow biblically in many different ways. And so, Jezebel in the Bible is the most loathed, one of the most hated figures next to Judas, right? She's the worst woman. And drag queens are vilified, right? And so to me, God always moves and works through the things that we think are the worst and the most unworthy. That's really the story of the Bible over and over again. And so Jezebel and this idea of these drag queen sisters saving the world from themselves, from their own humanity, is where my drag began. And so I was producing this, had no intention actually to be Jeza, was going to just be part of the production. I wrote, produced, we're directing it. And
was this your first thing? This is pretty extreme for someone's first thing.
It was my very first thing. And we casted the two sisters. They were fabulous, but I couldn't find somebody to really be Jeza. And so I decided to play this part with no experience, no acting, no nothing. It was a lot of fun. And after that, I started getting asked to do a whole bunch of stuff. And a lot of it was writing. And so I wound up with a couple of my own columns here and in the UK. And that's really how Jezebel was born. Wow. It's biblically grounded, right? Because I think drag queens have religion too. And we drink and cuss and we sleep around, and we also believe in God or deity or faith or spirituality in many different ways. And that's really where my drag came out of. Then it's progressed over the years.
I love it. Did you show this writing ability when you were growing up, or was it something that came upon you?
I wrote that. Then I wrote a couple screenplays, won some awards, and then was out of all things for a bit of a while because I had some ill family members, and Jeza's Jesus Juice sort of restarted everything. And as soon as that was done, literally the minute I finished writing Jeza's Jesus Juice, I began Blood Rouge, began Freedom to Love, and I already have the next one's coming out soon. I'll be happy to share a little at the end if you like.
Yes, I do want you to do that. Yeah, because I know anyone who's listening would want to know more about that. But I want to know more about who you were as a kid. Were you the kid that locked themselves in the room and wrote? or did you do sports? I know, I'm just joking. Tell me who you
Actually, I
were.
did.
You
Actually,
did.
well, I mean, not extreme sports, but I did run track, and I was pretty fast, and I would run the sprints. Uh,
Wow.
yeah, but I was a very basically who I am today, but because of my sexuality, faced a lot of challenges, and that made me really go into my shell publicly, but not if you knew me. Then privately, I tended to still be the same sort of like messy ham that I am today. And it wasn't until I got older that I just sort of stopped giving a flying flip about anything and everything, and just really became myself. And I
Right.
came into drag later in life, and Jeza really changed a lot for me. I found a voice. And so when I started my writing, for example, I would have people respond, producers, publishers, agents, and it was,
It's amazing, because you know
but
how hard it is. That's so incredible.
they didn't want to work with me if I kept the name Jezebel. It was, we love your work. Can you use a boy name? And so I refused to use my boy
I
name
am
because,
Jezebel.
yeah, because
No boy
Jeza
name.
is what gave me voice, number one. And number two, why can't I use this name? People use all kinds of names. And
Yeah.
so how dare you? And so, I let things pass by that I probably had opportunities, but I thought I'm going to do things on my terms, and whatever that looks like, whatever that is, I'm good with that. And I'm great with where I am and where things have evolved today. And look, I'm talking about things that really matter to me,
Well,
and
yeah,
so
and these books are wonderful vehicles to get your opinion out. Certainly, doing comedy is another way. When you write I do stand up and I can vent about the things that bother me. But when you put it in a book, this is a tangible thing that someone can take away with them. They can go back and reread it. And I totally love that you're doing this. And I'm sure when you show up to do readings, they don't have anybody that's like you that shows up to do readings.
no. And on this book, the thing that they always want to talk about is the mother, Mrs. Anna, because she is just pure terror and terrible. And so people, anywhere I go, if they're talking about this book, that's what they want to get to. People
Well,
say
and
she's,
that brought me to where I wanted to go. Were any of the characters in this book based even lightly on people that you knew?
so she really is the embodiment. The mother is horrible when you
She's
go to read the book.
horrible.
And she really is the embodiment of all of the terrible racist people that we have that exist here in this country and have over the arc of our own history.
Right.
And so I really wanted to make sure she represented every vile thing that you could think one could represent, including your own sort of, well, I don't want to give too much away, but her own vices. Let's put it like that.
Right.
Hidden vices.
Yeah, her own hidden vices, right? Because she had a very surprising history to her as well, and I will just leave it at that. While I was reading that, I saw Joan Crawford playing her. I thought she would be so. If I were casting it,
I
Joan
love that.
Crawford would have been so great in that role.
I love that. Actually, this whole time I've had in mind, there's the actress, and her name just left my mind. She's in The Black Serpent. She was also in Harlots, the TV show. She's a British actress. She played Alpha on The Walking Dead.
Oh,
She's a
I know.
phenomenal actress.
Phenomenal.
Her name's out of my mind, but I thought she
It'll
could
come when
play.
the show's over. It'll come back to you.
Yeah, she could play this horrible, wicked woman, I think, and she would do a phenomenal job. And then also I would give a shout out to my favorite, well, she really is probably my favorite actress, Kate Blanchett. I
Me
really
too.
would love her to do that. It would be a stretch.
Yeah, absolutely. So, do you have
So
plans on like taking this to stage or to film?
I would love for it to go to film, to be honest. I think it would be quite a movie, provocative and evocative. And that would be really a wonderful life goal if
Yeah.
that were to happen. Hopefully it will grow wings and fly right into the right producer, right into their lap. And
Well,
so there are,
if you watch Netflix, as I do, not a lot, but I use it to relax, believe it or not. I watch a lot of shows that are filmed in other parts of the world because their characterizations and perceptions are so different than here. But two men being together or two women being together, it just totally goes in those. It's totally normalized, right?
Yeah.
And it's not normalized here, which made me think, in the telling of your history, it's normal in a television show if it would be done probably elsewhere and then sold back to Netflix. Girl, I got big plans for you. That's all I can tell you.
Let's go. Netflix
It
is
should be
good.
like Netflix should come a knocking, because it's a great story.
Thank you. And, I do want to give shout out to my two main characters,
Yes.
Arthur and Samson. Just
Yes.
share. This is who it's all about. It's a love story at heart, even though it's a hard to digest love story at many points. It really is a love story at heart about a white young guy who inherits his father's plantation and falls in love with his childhood friend who happens
Yeah.
to be a black male slave. And so it's really, you have one who is idealistic and you have another who is realistic and has to deal with what actually happens day to day and has to live with those things, whereas the other really has privilege of choice and of movement and of everything else.
There were a couple of times when I was reading it, I wanted to jump through the book and smack Arthur, the the idealistic one. I wanted to say to him, Mary Sunshine, snap out of it.
Yes. So yeah, in some ways he's a slow burn, right? To figuring things out. He has good intentions at heart,
absolutely,
but it takes him a while to figure out and to be helped to figure out what that actually means, because sometimes we really need to learn from others around us that love us, and sometimes we're learning difficult truths. And so, I think back in my own relationship, right, and the difficult truths I've learned over time as a white person who walks around in this country day to day with privilege. And unless you were in those shoes and you can experience it, which you and I will never be, but we can get to understand more. And so I've shared before, and it's in, I believe it might be in Jeza's Jesus Juice. Can't remember. It's definitely been in Huffington Post. I believe I wrote about it. I remember one of the times when I first was with my partner way back at the beginning. And I remember we went out to dinner and he was totally annoyed with the waitress and I couldn't figure out why. And I thought, what is this guy's problem? Right. And then after not even after, she went away and he pointed out, you don't realize that the waitress never addresses me, never looks at me.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah.
I have experienced that with other actor friends of mine. Thank you, Jez, for bringing that up.
It really opened up my mind. And so since then, it happens all the time. I get brought the check, I get asked what we want, etc. And so I share that to some degree, it's overwhelming, and yet I don't wear that every minute of every day.
Right.
So how dare I, in a lot of ways. And so it's great to learn from the people around you, because we need to learn from each other. That's how we do better by each other. That's how we improve.
Yeah, agreed. And it's funny, I was going to ask you that because you mentioned that your partner was of color. And but again, you all are living in the Northeast. I think it's very different in New York and LA than it is in a lot of the other places in the country. I know for a fact that it is. I mean, my maiden name and my married name are both Jewish. And there are places in this country where I would be a little bit apprehensive of going. I had an incident happen, believe it or not. I remember at Disney World. And some guy was trying to push ahead in the line. He had all his kids with him. And I said, sir, there's a line. You need to, and he could have picked up my New York accent, but he actually said, it's one of them Jews. That's what he said. And I still to this day, and I'm sharing that with you, I was like, whoa, I'm in Orlando, Florida, and someone just said that to me. I remember feeling so enraged, and I didn't know what to do. I absolutely.
So imagine that every minute of every day, and we shouldn't fool ourselves. It happens every day, every minute, every second in New York City. in Los
Yes.
Angeles, in London, and I've bared witness to it in a different way now than I would have before. But we don't wear that every second, everywhere we go, everybody watching us. And so that was, I tried to make sure that was highlighted in the
Yeah,
book as well.
I'm glad. I thank you for that. Now, you travel to other places. I know you are a judge in film festivals. How did that all happen for you?
Yes, so I have been judging for a few years now. The Love and Hope International Film Festival takes place in Barcelona. The North Film Festival, which moves around, it was in Stockholm, Sweden, came to New York City. I believe it's going to Barcelona this year, or in 2026 too. So it's floating all over the place. That has been a lot of fun. I'm a jury member, and
Yeah, that's
which is a
great.
judge for the LGBTQ plus films. And also, I've had the privilege of being asked to come and talk about writing gay LGBTQ characters and
Right.
making them real.
Yeah.
And so it's been, that's definitely been a whole lot of fun. And so, yeah, I like to definitely take it, not just here, but abroad. And I will be in London at the very beginning of October. I have a bunch of
Ooh.
stuff lined up. So all my UK Brit people who I am a big Anglophile, they all know I love the UK so much. It's really my second home, I feel like, at this point.
I love
And
it.
big space in my heart, but I will be back in just about 2 months, and I'm looking forward to that.
Very, very, very cool. And I want to share with you, we're doing Jed Ryan and Clover, and I'm going to be doing the Q&As for the LGBTQ Film Festival at Jersey City, which I believe
Wonderful.
is August 16th. Yeah, that's coming up. And it's short films, which is great. But yeah,
Yeah.
we're going to get the message out there, which is wonderful. And again, creative is, to me, one of the best ways to do it. You engage your audience, you can make your point that way. Jezebel, I want you to tell me what's coming up in your upcoming books.
Sure, absolutely. Well, I'll give you a little bit of a teaser. My
Teaser,
next
we
book,
tease you.
book 3 of the President's Collection is coming out. I'm not going to tell you the name yet because that's going to be revealed a little bit down the line, but I will tell you that it's bisexual and it will take place during biblical times. And I'm quite excited about this story that I can't wait to unveil to the world in the fall. And then the final book will come out sometime in 2026. And again, it's featuring an intersex main character. At the same time, I am right now getting close to completing my first dark mythological fantasy thriller. So be looking for that hopefully sometime in 2026. It will be book 1 of a 2-part series. And yes, so lots of writing coming down the line and a whole bunch of other books planned. And
it's just amazing to me. I don't know how you can, especially working on 2 different books at one time that are vastly different. I don't know how you split your brain in that way to be able to do that, but damn, that's a gift.
Yes, it's called being crazy. Pretty much. That's it. How I approach most stuff.
We've got 2 minutes left. What would you like to share with your audience?
Sure. I most importantly would like to share, going back to what we spoke about before, art to me can save lives. It can touch lives.
Yeah.
Right. And so having conversations about things that are difficult, being visible, these things are very important, no matter what we're talking about, because they have the chance to change the world or change the world of somebody. So I thank everybody who would even just take a chance and take a peek at any of my work, be it from comedy, come see me, to reading any of my books. And thank you. I appreciate it.
Where can people find your books, Jezebel?
Well, really, they can find them all over. But they, of course, can go to Amazon. They can go to the publisher. Go to my website, IamJezebel.com, or follow me on Instagram at IamJezebel. So even though it's Jezebel, 2 words, it's 1 word for the sake of my website and for Instagram. And you can find me there. Go to Amazon. Go to your local bookstore. If they don't have it, demand it.
Demand it.
Yes.
Demand that they have it in the local bookstore.
Exactly. Or bookshop.org also.
Oh, bookshop.org. I'm so thrilled to have you back. I even, sometimes when I run a rerun, I like to rerun your shows. I am a great fan of yours, and I have yet to make it to one of the signings because they always conflict when I am doing a performance. But one will happen when we don't have that happen, right?
Absolutely. And I'm a great fan of yours too. And I love you to death. Thank you
Uh,
so much for having me on your show today.
Well, thank you so much. And I always do this little hokey thing. I like to take my pictures off the computer. So before we go, cheese. Love it.
Thank you.
I have
Thank you.
a whole
Gotta give a little-
collection of those. Maybe I'll do a gallery showing with those or something.
I think that would be fabulous, actually. A quilt.
Jezebel, thank you so much. Thank you to everybody
Thank
who tuned in with us. And if you are in the Milford, Pennsylvania area, please stop by Cafe Ren on Friday night. The amazing Sammy Isabella will be entertaining. And of course, the proceeds go to Triversity. And this remarkable young woman is going off to college. Just, I am surrounded by inspiring artists of all ages. What can I tell you? I agree with you, Jezebel. It's the art that will get us through in the end.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And faith, but that's my belief.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody. See you next week.
Bye-bye.